Welcome to Devotions on the Greek New Testament. In our last video we discussed Galatians 2:16. In this video we turn to 1 Corinthians 1:18, and I will show you an interesting grammatical construction that gets smoothed over in most English translations. But that construction actually places special emphasis on the cross. Let's read in the Greek first. O logos gar o tu stavru, tous men apolumenus Maria estin. Tous de sozomenus amen dunamis theu estin. Let's first start by finding and translating the verb. In this verse there are two clauses with the same verb in each clause, estin. This is a present indicative third-person singular verb from imi, translated she, he, or it, is. You may remember from the video on Galatians 5:22 that imi verbs have both a nominative subject and a predicate nominative. The nominative subject for both clauses is o logos, translated the word, because it has an article. Although o logos only appears in the first clause, it is normal for men de constructions to resume content from the previous clause. The predicate nominative in the first clause is moria, which is translated foolishness, and the predicate nominative in the second clause is dunamis, followed by a genitive modifier theu, translated the power of God. Now we can translate these remaining participle constructions. Tous apolumenus can be translated to those who are perishing, and tous sozomenus amen can be translated to us who are being saved. Now you may be asking yourself, why have we not translated o tu stavru? Well, that's a great question. I have waited to translate this phrase because it is what I want to talk about. Most translations say something like the word of the cross, NASB, or the message about the cross, NRSV. These are fine translations, but English struggles to convey the grammatical emphasis that Paul is communicating with the whole phrase, o logos, o tu stavru. So let's talk about this construction. Notice that o tu stavru begins with a nominative masculine singular article, but instead of being followed by a nominative masculine word, it is followed by a genitive article and genitive noun. Often, grammarians will categorize this masculine article as an article that functions like a relative pronoun. So this word would be translated something very woodenly like the word which is of the cross, or the word which is about the cross. This makes sense of the phrase in an English translation. However, what is happening grammatically in Greek is actually different. This is why in Koine Greek grammar it explains this use of the article as the, quote, so-called pronominal use. This construction is actually a way of writing emphatically and making a noun function like an attributive adjective. If you know the attributive adjective positions, you will know that the second attributive position is article, noun, article, adjective. Daniel Wallace actually explains this odd nominative article in 1 Corinthians 1:18. He writes, "This is the use of the article with the second and third attributive positions, in which the modifier is not an adjective." The primary reason an author would say something like this is for emphasis. This construction is actually unnecessary because Paul didn't need to use the masculine article. Instead, he could have used a simple genitive to describe the word he was speaking about, something like o logos gar tu stavru. In fact, a few early manuscripts have it written without the nominative masculine article. However, the overwhelming majority of the early manuscripts have the article, and this is likely the original reading. Interestingly, this nominative masculine singular article makes this phrase emphatic. In English, we could give it similar emphasis by writing something like the word, that is, the word of the cross, or something similar. Although virtually all English translations smooth out this construction, if we read this text in Greek, we notice that Paul is emphasizing the cross. The emphatic word Paul proclaims is not just any word. It is a word about the cross of Jesus, and that cross of Jesus turns the world's expectations upside down. Richard Hayes writes in his commentary on 1 Corinthians, Paul's language throughout this section revels in the paradoxical twist of God's grace. The fundamental theological point is that if the cross itself is God's saving event, all human standards of evaluation are overturned. The cross was designed to demonstrate that no one should defy the powers that be. Yet Paul's gospel declares that the crucifixion of Jesus is somehow the event through which God triumphed over those powers. Rather than proving the sovereignty of Roman political order, it shatters the world's systems of authority. Rather than confirming what the wisest heads already know, it shatters the world's systems of knowledge. Therefore, Paul's emphatic word, o logos gar o tu stavru, is a shocking and unsettling transformation of the way things are supposed to work. A cross that was meant to subdue and subjugate, God used to rescue and liberate. A sign of brutal Roman oppression paradoxically becomes a sign of human liberation. This symbolic transformation reformats the way Paul thinks about the power of Roman oppression and the power of God's salvation. The word of the cross is an invitation to undergo a conversion of the imagination, to see all values transformed by the foolish and weak death of Jesus on the cross.